So I want to tell you the story of how me and my son learned the exact same lesson on the exact same day by hurting our back in the exact same way and getting the exact same treatment, and how all of that relates to how we understand Christianity, ourselves, and Scripture. If you want to know more, don't skip this video and I'll tell you about it. So me and my son went to the gym together. And when we were in the gym, I began to work out and my son began to play in the gym. And he was doing all kinds of crazy stuff, just like a little boy would do in the gym. But one of the things that kept happening is he was doing stuff that felt very, very dangerous, hoping that I would look over at him and be proud of him, hoping that I would be impressed by what he did. And so one time he jumped up and he tried to grab on the pull-up bars and he slipped and he fell and he landed on his back. And when he landed on his back, he was crying and he came over to me and I said, "Son, this is why I told you, you don't play around in the gym. You can get hurt. The gym is not safe. The gym is not a safe place to play. You really need to focus and pay attention and not do things here that you know you can't do." And so he said, "Okay, Daddy." And I got up and I went and got him some ice and I put it on his back and he was iced. And then he felt better probably about 30 minutes later. So about 30 minutes later though, I was lifting weights and I got to this point where I was about to do a deadlift. And I said to my son, "Hey son, should I put 30 more pounds on there?" And he said, "Yeah, Dad." And so I said, "Okay." And so I put 30 more pounds on there and I went to lift the deadlift. And the next thing that happened is I popped up off the deadlift, didn't get it off the ground. My back began to hurt. I got home and my back was still hurting. And so I went to go get some ice. And on my way to get some ice, I heard God say this to me: "Wes, you shouldn't be playing around at the gym. You shouldn't be doing things you're not supposed to be doing." And so I put some ice on my back. And the difference between me and my son is that he felt better 30 minutes later. My back ended up hurting for about 3 weeks. And from this, you know what we learned? 2 things. Number one, we learned that a teacher should be careful because they will experience a greater judgment. You've always been taught that that verse was meant for pastors or deacons or whoever, but that verse was meant for you. If you're going to try to teach somebody something, understand you should be careful what you teach because you're going to face a greater judgment. My son's back felt better in 30 minutes. Mine hurt for 3 weeks. But here's what we also learned. We also learned an important way to think about how ancient cultures thought about people and descendants. If you think about it, me and my son learned the exact same lesson. We were experiencing the exact same thing. And that's because me and my son are essentially sharing the same spirit. That's how ancient cultures thought about descendants and ancestors. And that's why ancestors are such a big deal. They actually believe not only do you share biological information with your descendants, but a part of your spirit is passed down into those who come after you as well. And if you get uncomfortable with that, I would ask you, how come you're comfortable with DNA then? We're okay with DNA being passed down, but we're not comfortable with a part of a spirit being passed down? And if that's the case, then what we find is that the spirit within me is also in my son. And so he is a continuation of me. He is me again. And that is how ancient cultures understood descendants and people. That's why there's a big deal around John the Baptist when they're trying to figure out a name for him. They're like, "Why would you name him John? Who else in your family is named John?" There's nobody else who shares that same kind of spirit. The idea there is what's being passed down to John is the spirit of those who came before him. Who is John going to be like? Who is he going to behave like? And if you think about it, we use this language all the time. "Man, she's cooking that food. It's like she's got the same spirit as my grandmother. She's got the same spirit as my cousin." Maybe they do. Maybe they do share the same spirit. And that spirit has some lessons it needs to learn. In this case, my spirit and my sons needed to learn, hey, you don't play around in places that aren't safe and try to show off for somebody else. You try to be focused, make sure you're deliberate in what you learn. And so what begins to happen is if we understand that we are a continuation, we are a descendant sharing the same spirit of those who came before us. What does that mean when Jesus says, I'm not only going to make that physical, I'm going to make it spiritual. You are now spiritual descendants of me. So you may not have biologically came from me, but the same spirit that is in me is in you. And so the same things that the Spirit in me could do are the same things that the Spirit in you could do. And so in that sense, you are Jesus again. You're being like he is. And that's how we're supposed to live our Christian life. If we truly believe the Spirit of God is inside of us, the one that was in Jesus is inside of us, then when people look at us, they should say, man, you guys remind me of the way that Jesus behaved. And that's because we are sharing the same Spirit, because we are spiritual descendants of Jesus.